So everyone knows there's lots of hype or overhype or underhype depending on the phase of technology, but DeFi has been really interesting. We've gone from 500 million US dollars to 1.2 billion on the Ethereum chain in 6 months. So there is definitely some realness to it. It's not just hype. And for those matters, let's kind of navigate through this system. Please, gentlemen, if you disagree with each other, if anyone disagrees with any idea and wants to share a new perspective, it's always better to have different perspectives. Doesn't mean that we're disagreeing with a person, but we're disagreeing with an idea. So no offense taken. Feel free to debate, guys. That can sharpen the saw, as we say.
Play with the ball, not with the man.
Exactly. Play with the ball, not with the man. Exactly. So without further ado, the very first question, as you guys know, DeFi has multiple categories and subcategories. So I'd love to ask you, gentlemen, in terms of the categories, so we have, of course, you talked about passive income, you talked about lending, you talked about decentralized exchanges, we have payments, we have DEXs. There's so many categories. So within this hype, which categories make the most sense within the DeFi movement? And if you have any examples, that would be great. So without further ado.
So I think the applicability depends on its use to the target audience, right? I can't imagine using blockchain-based payments for myself. I would like to buy coffee and know exactly what it's going to cost me in dollar terms. I want to wave my phone at the reader and not think about it. And this kind of smoothness of transaction isn't possible or even potentially intended for blockchains anyway. There are certain, I suppose, layer 2 solutions that do work like this, but layer 2 solutions are, well, if you have to implement a layer 2, you don't need a blockchain. So for other things, programmable finance, we were talking about financial Legos. That is very cool. What was possible before with paper contracts can now be automated, and you can have multiple parties participating in these systems in a way that you may not have envisioned, and that's exciting stuff. So why I'm interested in the space in general is the programmable finance aspect of it, where we can build instruments that react on their own automatically.
Right. So the DeFi in general, it's an emergent property, right? It didn't really like someone just actually wrote it in a white paper and said we're going to do this. It actually emerged out from the blockchain use case because we all are very much familiar with paying a fee for financial services. So the first thing is like onboarding a lot of users. What is the first use case of the crypto? We've been talked about like, hey, how many coffees that you actually bought with the cryptocurrency? Not many. It's not really a good use case for the crypto, but the way that we introduce that, because we use a lot of coffee and we consume a lot of coffee on a daily basis. So that's something synonymous to understand it. But the key driver of the DeFi now is providing a saving rate. So you can actually have a dollar denominated stable coin and you can get a 6% return that you won't get. And anyone can actually get that. So we have, I personally know the use case of people actually getting paid on a stable coin, living in Argentina or somewhere in the high inflation countries, and they're actually getting a really good returns of that. And a lot of people actually came for that 6% return. So you don't have to really know anything about it, no volatility, nothing, but the stable coin actually take the mental cost. So the mental cost of participating in a system. That's the big driver of the DeFi at the moment. That's what I see. And we actually seeing it. A lot of things are played out in traditional finance in 25 years ago, 30 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. It's all playing out in much more faster pace in DeFi space, right? So how many of you guys are very much versed with the pooling savings account that we had like about 8 or 10 years ago in Europe? So it's like you just save your money in a saving account, then everybody saved, and one guy will actually get the whole interest for everyone. So it's actually playing out called a Pool Together, an app where you can actually go and buy a ticket. It's no lottery ticket. So you put like $5, $10, you will get your dollar back, but if you're lucky, you're gonna get a whole lot of money, like $1,000, $2,000 within a week, because they're gonna put this money into the compound and a lending protocol, and they're gonna give you back all the interest they accrued for the whole entire group. So it's like there's a lot of things actually happening. A lot of innovation is happening in DeFi. So this is definitely a new world with no strings attached. It's a wild west. I'm pretty excited with it.
Fantastic. So just let's reach out to the crowd. So we had payments as being not necessarily the perfect use case for DeFi. We had savings as a good example, stablecoin. Does anyone have any other examples that they would like to share that they like about the DeFi movement?
Well, I think the thing is to understand what it's trying to achieve. I think there's 3 billion people on the planet who probably don't have access to a bank account. And so this technology gives them that access where currently they just couldn't pass, they haven't got the documentation even to get to the first level. And I know governments are scared of this, but for me this technology opens up this huge raft of amazing things that people, probably 3 billion people haven't got access to. And I think somebody was saying there was 20 to 30 million illegal Americans who haven't got access to the banking because they're illegal. So I think this is, to me, what this technology does. It just opens it up to everybody rather than just, you know, the KYC who can pass the JP Morgan tests.
Thank you very much. Any other specific examples that you guys like, whether it be lending, whether it be
I really like
taxes?
the insurance type cases, whether it's mutual benefit cover or whether it's just flight delay insurance. Because the whole thing of it's deterministic. You don't have to deal with a large company that doesn't care. You don't have to wait for weeks and weeks. It's like it either happens or it doesn't. It's deterministic. You can't. The big man can't mess with it basically. So I really like those, and I hope we see adoption growing.
Awesome. So we have stable coins, we have savings accounts, we have insurance. That makes sense.
The insurance is a really good take because there's already it's in place now. So you can actually go and put your stablecoin or any other assets for lending, and then the insurance is covered through a novel mechanism of options, right? So you can actually price in, you will get 5%, but if you have an insurance, you will get like 4.5%, right? But then you give up that 5%, the whole money that has been insured. That's already been played out. So you don't have to really worry about FDIC, federal deposit, things like that. I don't know what's in the UK, but back in the US. But they only insure for 200,000. So if you ever know, it's only the saving is for the mainstream consumers. But back in the US, what happened is after 2009, the whole thing came down. Trump in the House of Cards. The companies, the business accounts are not really putting their money into savings account because you only have up until 200,000 insured. So most of them have the balance sheet. There's a lot of cash in account. It's much more than that. So the repo market is going really, really crazy. So you have, if I'm right, it's about 70% of the entire balance sheet is in the repo market. So that's because they're taking risk because they're not insured, because nobody can actually guarantee that kind of things that I'm going to pay you if they fail because it's market-driven economy. So this is actually going to be really cool.
Fantastic. Yes, one person over here.
I'm most excited about synthetic equities.
Synthetic, yeah.
So right now, if you want to buy Tesla or Apple, you have to be one of the most privileged people on earth. But if you want to open that up to anyone that has access to a cryptocurrency wallet, that changes things substantially. So if you want to invest on the NASDAQ via a ETH or hopefully Tezos wallet, that's very exciting.
It's there.
Fantastic. Yeah, the Synthetics token, by the way, we did 40x last year. I think it's the best performing token among all crypto assets. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. We'll do this for 2 more questions and get you involved. If you have any ideas, again, if you disagree, any angle that you want to bring in, feel free to open up. So without further ado, next question is related to DeFi on Tezos, as you were mentioning just now. And there was a really good slide that you mentioned why Tezos. And as you guys know, more than 90% of DeFi is staked on the Ethereum blockchain. So just if you guys could give us a few ideas on why Tezos matters, why other blockchains and not just Ethereum, that would be really, really helpful to just remind us the key points.
So for me, Tezos is interesting because it's a proof of stake chain. Ethereum is, at its current iteration, is a non-starter because it's proof of work. Tezos provides interesting security guarantees for the smart contract development as well. And also, on some level, it's exciting to work on more early stage chain, if you will. Like more stuff is sort of up in the air for Tezos right now when you can develop it in a different and interesting way than it's already available on Ethereum. But that aside, really it's the proof of stake nature of it, the intrinsic chain-based returns, the smart contract security. Those are the things that are interesting for us.
And why POS over POW?
It is more efficient in the sense that my infrastructure is leaner. It's more predictably scalable. The chain itself behaves in a more predictable way. On-chain governance is actually another one where any chain participant in theory can propose an upgrade, and we can change this in the span of 3 months, I believe. So that's cool stuff. But proof of work is, from my perspective, needlessly wastes resources. We don't need it. We can do other things.
So I would say why the Tezos is really good on DeFi. The first thing which comes to my mind is there is no keyman problem in Tezos. Like there is no one guy who is ruling the Tezos, and just like you have to really look up to that guy, and he's, it's like a dictatorship. If you look at the whole lot of chains, Tezos is not only the one chain out there, some multiple chain, and there's a lot of chains are launching it. But this is a very decentralized, vibrant community. They started like about a year ago. This is the first chain, but they started with 2 validators, if I believe right. But now it's close to 500 validators they have. This itself is a huge, as a proof of like how vibrant is the community. The tech is solid. They did the 2 amendment on on-chain governance. It's growing. They are, learning from their own mistakes. So Tezos is one of the role model, and they have a really good use case. A chain which has been built forever. If you want to put on your assets on a chain, one of the concerns is, would that chain be there like after 10 years or 15 years? So what is that? The decentralized community anyone can actually fork away. There's a good asset, and they can keep that chain going on. So you can actually, rely on that chain. So on the DeFi perspective, DeFi is the toolkits, right? It's the money Legos, it's the toolkits. So you can actually have that access to the DeFi with the whole flex of muscle. So apart from the proof of work, if you go to the DeFi itself, if you're lending an ETH, you will actually get 0.1 or 0.2% returns, because nobody's actually asking ETH to do something more. But you have a real use case on a proof of stake on Tezos, you are going to give that token to the protocol itself, and you're going to get something in return. It's not really complex to explain to someone who doesn't even know what is a cryptocurrency. You're going to give like $100, and I'm going to give you $105 as my say. It's pretty easy. Everyone understand that. So proof of stake is good. And also answering the one question that the gentleman asked, why it is so good, can also prevent the attacks. Can come the proof of work cannot do it, like you can play back some of the transactions if there is enough consensus that you can do it. If it is a malicious transaction with a slashing and all this kind of mechanism. I don't want to go deep into it, but this is one of the aspects. And Ethereum always priced in proof of stake from the beginning itself, because they knew it. That's the way forward. So we begin with proof of work. It's a novel mechanism. Launch a minimum viable product as such as, you have a store of value, but if you want to bring more and more complex functionalities, you need something can withstand. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Any questions, comments?
Sorry, I have a follow-up.
Yeah,
so
sure.
to your point about decentralization, it's absolutely true.
Right.
There are, I think it's not 5, I think it's closer to 400 validators, bakers on the chain, and it took the foundation was the initial runner of validators on the Tezos chain, and it took them 15 cycles to lose control of it, in the sense that enough of the fundraiser coins were distributed, and people started running their own validators so quickly that the chain became very decentralized very, very quickly. And I don't believe there's another chain, certainly not a proof of stake chain, that is this decentralized. So that's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see how the same playbook of Nakamoto, the he played with the Bitcoin, there's nobody knows who is Satoshi, but that he delivered it, but he took that pain to be like anonymous. But then the proof of stake, if you go to the Cointelegraph, that's 100 main people out there, there's no Tezos guy there. The reason it's getting decentralized. So they address that problem first. In order to sustain a longer term, you need to solve that key man problem at the beginning itself. So, that's very decentralized, and they have this micro echo chamber. Most of the Tezos stakers at the moment are egalitarian. Because, you have all this baking and staking, all this network, but they're participating 80%. That's a huge percent for the staking. That you go for any voting, right? Though it turns out for voting, believe me, voter apathy is a big thing. You have to bribe them to come and vote it. But here it's like close to 70% of the on-chain governance. So they want to see this succeed. So that's a perfect case for a good proof of stake chain as a Tezos.
Beautifully said. We had a question over here in comments. Liam.
In your personal opinion, what do you think the biggest reason, the biggest reason as to what will stop the average person from taking part in making use of DeFi products and the platforms, and what do you think will encourage them to use DeFi going forward into the near future?
Good question.
That's a great question. That was my next question. So good job.
Okay, so in one word, everyone just say it. So I'm going to repeat it. UX, but that's a very limited way of answering your question. User experience is not necessarily a flashy UI, but then even if you go to any cryptocurrencies, not Tezos guy, non-Tezos cryptocurrency guy, he knows about what is a cryptocurrency. He doesn't understand what is a baking, how to do this nonsense, stuff like that. So you need to address this learning curve, how to reduce this friction. So we live in a Uberized culture. We live in a world where you press a button, you get a plane, you press a button, you get a cab, you press a button, you get into a hotel. This is the world that we live in. So if you don't have that kind of user experience to give it to them, onboarding users is really, really a huge barrier. So you need to give that, the press a button, you will get into the system and you get the reward for it and you can actually enjoy it. Give the taste to them and they will stick with you. That's it.
Building on that, I think user experience, but more so an understanding, like confidence and understanding that they know how this works, right? So if they deposit some tangible currency into a system that is cryptocurrency based in the back, they need to have the confidence that they understand how it works and they will get their money back. And that's a big deal. Like they need to have this security in their investment, which is, investing in stocks, for example, is just something people understand over the years. Like blockchains are new. This is still very new. That's one thing. Another thing is just general security, right? You read frequently about people losing their coins for one reason or another, whether it's because their computers were hacked or they simply lost the keys or whatnot. So this is why we have all these custodial exchanges. They provide a mechanism for you to recover your coins if something happens. But at the same time, of course, people generally say, not your keys, not your tokens, right? So we need to do something about this. And the something may well be user education. Cryptography is cryptography. You need keys. I don't know if we'll be able to find a solution that's not that.
So I slightly disagree with the first statement. Not everything in the finance world need to be very complex. A normal user, a Joe down the road, doesn't really need to know how the stock works. So let's say if you have a traveler's check, right? You don't need to know how the banks are assuring if you have a traveler's check and you travel and you give that check, all you need to know, you will get the money for that one. That's all you need to know, right? You give that, or you have a credit card or debit card, you give that, the merchant will accept it. So they don't have to really know how it's playing out in the behind the scene. But as it gets complex and complex, you need to have more and more knowledge about it. So if you want to have, you need to make a choice which kind of audience that you're focusing on DeFi. We are right now, seeing that a George Soros moment, that kind of tools is available on DeFi to everyone. So about a week back, someone actually went into DeFi market, got $1 million loan with no collateral, zero collateral. They can get $1 million and they can do whatever it is. They can move around from one protocol to another protocol, right? So the protocol are financial institutions and the banks at the moment. And they moved around and he just walked away with $500,000, all right? This whole thing happened within one block. So it's nothing to do with the asset as such, but they are making it it's not a hacking. It's a pure trading, a novel trading. You just balanced it. So this is capital is available right there. You can take it. You can do whatever you want. You make money. You pay a person within a block. As long as you do that, that's fine. So these kind of innovations are happening. But this is not going to be possible in traditional finance.
That flash loan was pretty crazy, wasn't it, last week? That was crazy news.
Exactly.
Any other challenges that you guys see potentially? We talked about education.
Yeah.
the flash loan.
So I kind of agree with you. If you can get away with it, great. But didn't it turn out that the contract holders had admin keys that could interfere with that trade? So it turned out there was actually a very small amount of people who own those contracts who can wind back trades if they want to. So DeFi isn't that.
So now you're asking about not the flash loan as an instrument. So you have, like, as I said, it's an instrument. Like, it's a pool of money came from many people, right? So flash loan is a one protocol which is make you available unlimited amount of funds to do certain, many things that you want to do, right? But if you are a bank, let's say protocol, a bank or financial institution is providing avenue to use a flash loan, you better be equipped with the safety and security measures to, to keep your liquidity pools. So you cannot steal the money from other guys because it's non-custodial, as long as it's non-custodial, right? But that's a bank run on the protocol, so they have to take the loss.
Yeah,
So the admin key is pretty much on the protocol level. So the protocols that you're relying are not really good, then, that's not really good. That's something to do with the protocol and the team, the product that you're actually choosing. It's nothing to do with the technology as a layer of a flash loan, as a mechanism.
No, but the decentralized isn't that decentralized because most of these.
No, it's not. It's not. So don't live in a hallucination. Decentralized. No, decentralized doesn't mean that everything is trustless. Decentralized is like, a bunch of people are coming together. So that's the DeFi came out from a marketing nuance. It was there. It came out from a Telegram group. We are like about 50 people. Then it's just. Yeah, so we are just, we're just living and it's playing out right in front of your eyes. The one protocol, so 1 billion value has been locked up. That's one way to see it. But then the DYDX1 derivative protocol has originated more than $1 billion worth of transactions. Nuo has originated debt for processed more than 500 million. So there's a lot of things are happening. So as a market economics, this is thriving. And out of nowhere, the users are coming. So you can actually put out your own token without an oracle, and you can name yourself that token, and you're going to sell that token for an hourly basis for someone actually want to consult with you. So this is not only getting the money, but there's lots and lots of use cases. Whatever you want to do with the money is actually getting recreated there. It's new world.
At the moment, all these billions being moved around, is there any underlying economic activity, or is it just sort of let's move it here, let's move it there?
Yeah, this is.
Where does the 6% come from, right?
Exactly.
Someone's giving up 6%.
So perhaps one of that is that's my slide, right? Where is that yield come from? Will they do it? Like if you're looking at it, like they're letting it, borrowing it, splitting it, halving it, flashing it, all this blah 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 things. But yeah, speculation. So yeah. Yeah, so abracadabra, but they're paying you back at the moment, so they are actually fighting for that yield.
That's a house of cards, right?
Who knows?
Speculation without utility.
No, but actually it's serving a lot of things, as long as it's not custodial.
No, but my house of cards. So my real question is, when do we start seeing the utility? Because I fully believe in DeFi, I fully believe in Tezos, blockchain.
Well, you have to.
When do we start seeing the
No, we have the utility.
I'm tired of all the speculation.
No, we have the utility. So everything is like getting mature. You cannot have everything like the mature. You cannot just go and compare with your traditional finance. So there is starting. But the first thing is like a cryptocurrency cannot find a market where they can utilize it for certain things. So they created for the use cases for that, the derivative and things like that. But now you can actually pay remote workers, the payroll, and a lot of people actually coming and taking, as I said, stable coin mechanism with banking unbanked people just don't. Yeah, not only Argentina. Yeah, there's one of the wallets, right? There's a lot of wallets out there. You can actually go download a software, press a button, and you will get the dollars. And you can actually have the synthetic tokens and synthetic shares. You can actually partake in the financial market, which is completely inaccessible for more than 5 billion people out there.
The biggest problem I see with this technology at the moment is tax is unknown. So if you move from one token to another in the UK, that's a taxable event. So that sort of ruins the whole thing in my books. And so
It's unknown, don't pay it.
and the bigger guy, Liam was saying like, what would cause people to use it? That would be a reason not to use it. If they had a lot of money, they could make interest on it, but they go, I don't know how that's going to be taxed. And just moving from Ether to the DAI token is taxable then.
Well, that was my point earlier about having the confidence and understanding of how this works, right? If you make capital gains, you're going to pay capital gains taxes. There's an understanding of how this functions in the real world, if you will. So we don't have that with cryptocurrency-based derivatives right now.
Don't worry, they won't get out.
But it's an interesting thing, if you look at DCK or gold, they call it now, it's collateral to, for instance, dollar tokens. Is that taxable, is that not taxable? In the real world, having collateral is not. In this world,
Sounds like securitization.
Yeah, I don't think we have the expertise here to discuss that.
That would be the bigger guy.
It doesn't start looking like all CEOs, CEO squared, CEO cubes. We've kind of been here before in 2008, haven't we? Kind of end up very well.
I wouldn't say so. To your point about actual use cases, I don't think that this speculation is not the use case. It is a use case to a lot of people, and clearly there are very active markets as well. So it may not be a use case a lot of people are interested in. Sure, it's not this. It hasn't benefited, I suppose, a broader section of the population that perhaps it can in the future, but it is a use case on its own. And I'm sorry.
The floor is zero with speculation.
Right, but different kinds of people participate, and we get to develop technology on top of which we can build other things. I mean, DAI is a relatively recent development. It didn't exist before, and it does now. And with DAI, we can do other things. And the fact that it is a stable coin enables new kinds of instruments to exist on top of it. For example, payroll in cryptocurrency that does not fluctuate like crazy.
Simon, yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing about tax is that usually a large phase borrow, and then at that moment, that's how you're able to reduce your tax. So then in other times, then you can invest. There's always a way to manage it.
Thank you so much, Simon. Yes.
So, you asked why Tezos? Neither of you mentioned formal verification. Obviously,
I called it something else, but yes.
okay. It didn't work in Babylon. When will it start working? And when are we going to find value in formal verification to create bulletproof DeFi contracts? Have either of you experienced formal verification in your work with Tezos? Yeah.
I have experience in formal verification, not necessarily with the Tezos, but I did the formal verification of contracts. But I also looked into it. But the formal verification doesn't mean that everything is guaranteed. Formal verification is a set of mathematical specification what that functions are intend to do it. That doesn't necessarily guarantee anything, that the safety of the smart contract in certain situations.
Would it provide for better security than what happens
Yes.
with UIDX?
Yes. So you can formal verify Ethereum contracts at the moment. You can do it, but Solidity is not really a good language to do a lot of things. This is where I actually see. This is one of my statement in my slide is formal verification. Why Tezos? That was like the last one, but it was there. So integer overflow. So you cannot do much complex math with the Solidity contract. So you just have to rely on better formal verification enabled technologies. But Tezos can do it, but the problem is you don't have that community of the DeFi at the moment, the toolkits, but the Tezos will be really, really a good chain where you have these assets, the complex asset can be built out. And then it can survive that one. So you have a different niche and use case where the others chains cannot do it. And that's the key point of the Tezos, I believe. Would that answer your question?
Yeah, partly so. I mean, I'd love to understand why not every on-chain governance action goes through formal verification before we vote.
So one of the things I believe, myself, I'm not into the core developer of a Tezos, but I did a treasury mechanism which is actually being based on liquid proof of stake, which is the same as a Tezos. So voting apathy is one of the big thing in any voting process. So you want to have that participation that's very high. You can automate certain things to a certain level. So we carried out a statement voting, which actually turns out to the technology that what we're doing at the moment, which is streaming one asset to another, where you cryptographically prove the owner and the function. So you actually give your vote to one trustee, and then you're thinking, okay, this guy is gonna follow the big leader, then my vote is with you. But if he's gonna switch when he's gonna vote, then he will lose it, but he don't know that. So the vote tally will happen. So the voting is one of the biggest cumbersome process in any system. But this will kind of come into effect when we have more and more cryptography enabled system plus the formal verification smart contracts there. You know what I'm saying? So at some point of time.
I think the governance process on Tezos, and again, I'm also not part of the core team. I can't comment on what specifically they're developing or what their plans are, but the governance process itself is still developing. And I agree that more testing and more transparency on the outcomes would be nice. At the moment, from what I can tell of the vote participants, most people assume that it's fine, right? So for example, the Babylon update happened. There were some issues with it. It had to be patched pretty quickly thereafter. Now Carthage, which is the next update, is fixing bugs introduced in Babylon. So I agree that the governance process can improve, and I would assume that it will. But also there is a high level of participation from the community in general in the process, which is a good sign.
Yeah, ETHDAO had a whole bunch of community participation, and there were a lot of assumptions made.
You're talking about the DAO which actually lost the money, not the DAO which actually making the money, right?
It wasn't hacked.
That's the DAO that actually lost the money. Yeah. So that's the social coordination actually helped it. So they just walked away.
Sure.
Yeah, they just walked away. That's one thing they did. That's the beginning. Those days are gone.
Thank you so much for the question. So on to the last question. I want you guys to try to be visionaries.
Right.
So thinking about the future of DeFi, where are we going this year, possibly 2021 and beyond? Where do you see us going? What are the challenges? What do you really want to see happen within this year and the next year, if possible, if you guys can weigh on that?
Well, I think to some extent, because we do technology for blockchains, we are in control of our own destiny. Because if we're missing something, we can go and build it. And that has driven a lot of our development in the past. We build things that we need to do the things that we find interesting. So our libraries, our products were created because we wanted to do something with a blockchain product. But as a result, tools improve, documentation improves, people can see what was done before and they can build on top of it. So when we make our products available, open source, freely, we gather community feedback on what we can build in addition to that. This DeFi thing is new for us, but this is ultimately what we were always interested in, that, let's get to a point where we can do hard finance on blockchains because it's programmable. Like, you can do sophisticated things, which, I find them interesting, at least with finance, with traditional finance. Well, we can do them programmatically with blockchain finance.
What are some examples of hard finance or sophisticated finance that you can?
Well, this trustless staking token is getting us there, I think, because it behaves like a forward. Oracles, I would hope oracles improve, because there's certain things that we can't do today due to information scarcity. I mean, trustlessly, you can only perform computations on blockchain data. Maybe there's a solution here that brings in external information, and that opens up another set of possibilities as well.
Cool. Great. So forwards, bonds, anything else you'd like to see?
Right. So I'm actually gonna look at a much more optimistic view. So there's like about $1 billion at the moment. It's DeFi locked up, but I'm gonna see myself, this DeFi is going to be $1 trillion economy. So how does the economic bandwidth is going to be shared across the chains? So you're not going to create the same tools on every chain. That's not going to work. You need a lot of developers. You need a lot of things to be, and that doesn't really make sense. But there's a lot of interesting initiatives like IBC, inter-blockchain communication, and zero knowledge proofs and stuff like that. Trustless bridge. So you have a huge bandwidth for the Tezos. And think about it, an STU has been issued in Tezos, can stream the rent with the DeFi tools available in Ethereum. You just pay the cost, but you never move the assets to another chain. So this is the sharing thing which is going to be there. So the DeFi is going to ultimately share the bandwidth of many chains. and Tezos is going to play out a big role because it can bring the complex financial instruments, and the assets can be locked up forever. Are the high net worth Rs and STOs or genomics and all this kind of data. All these things can be tokenized on Tezos, and this will be streamed to the participants in the DeFi economy. So we're not really far away from $1 trillion DeFi. Within 5 years, I would say that, because it literally happened within last 18 months with no yield, literally just speculation. But now the innovations are coming in. Think about that, the curve that always we have, the early adopters, and then the mainstream adopters going to come. That's a hockey stick. That's where it's going to hit the $1 trillion. We're going to wait for it.
So do you believe STOs and tokenized assets will be one of the major...
I would say complex financial instruments. Not necessarily an STO would be the STO at the moment now. So security tokenization is one thing, but it will all come into on-chain driven. So more and more on-chain driven financial instruments come into place, like asset transfer between the tokens. NFTs will play for the arts. STOs will be one thing that there will be security token offering for a person who's really famous. You can purchase the token and he's going to perform, let it be a rapper or singer. You're going to get a Justin Bieber STO, who knows it, right? And you can hold that share and he's going up. And if he's going to flop, I'm not sure. Maybe an STO for a soccer player in Europe. All this thing can be played out blockchain, because more and more you're reachable to more and more audience, right? And then they can actually buy it. Think about it. All these things can happen.
I'm pretty sure STOing a person is a violation of human rights.
I know. I'm a deaf.
I think you mean the contract, right? Their football contract or whatever, income contract. Yeah.
But the income sharing agreements that the code mills do are basically fractional slavery. And
Are they tokenized?
not yet.
Just giving me an idea.
So guys, thank you so much. Just before we end, I'm the host of Crypto Nights, NITES. I'm American, so we don't know how to spell. But yeah, if you guys want to log on to our YouTube channel, it's a 4K crypto show made in London, and it's based on Netflix standards. We have Andreas Antonopoulos, some of the bright minds. We had bright minds tonight. Let's thank them all for their great work, and thank you so much for your participation, guys. Thank you very much.